Hello, hello, my Soulpreneur Life family and friends. It's me again, Kendra Bolden, your host. And today we have a wonderful guest, Miss Jessica Halverson, the founder of Mom Elevated. She goes by content specialist and mom for mompreneurs, right? Did I say that right?
That's right.
Okay, so I'm excited to have you on today so that you can just share a little bit about what it is you do and how you help people and really get our audience connected. So without further ado, hello, Miss Jessica.
Oh, so nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's an honor. It's an honor. I know we've been connected for some years now, so I think it's really beautiful, the evolution of people actually connecting online, working together online, and just doing all of these things where we can see each other grow and transform, right? I think that that's beautiful.
Yes, and finally get to collaborate and help each other out and boost a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
network. Yes. I think a lot of that is missed sometimes because I know that the online space can be kind of cringy at times where it's just suffocating because it's like everyone's just take, see me, and they don't really want to add value or share or genuinely connect. And, when you are really in a place where your heart is open and you really want to help people and you really want to see people succeed, it can be disheartening at times because there are so many people who are fast paced and all about that quick turnaround, and they just miss the connections. And I think that that's a bummer for them. So I'm just glad that we're here together still after all this time.
I agree. I know. And it's fun to see the evolution and be like feel like you've been a part of it, watching
Yeah.
it and just checking back in every now and then and seeing, I don't know, just checking in on the person and not so much
Yes.
um the facade of what's happening with the business, side of
Yeah.
things. But yeah, I love it. And hearing everybody's stories because it does, the more that you're in business, the more it changes and evolves too, which is exciting.
Yes, yes. And I love that evolution too. I want to hear from you. I know I could talk all day about my own personal evolution and where I started. And you've been there for a lot of it when I decided to revamp everything. And oh my gosh, let's see. I think it was 2017. I made the new page and I just really went into what is it to be a civilian? What is it to be an entrepreneur? And all of these things. And I jumped around a lot. So I want to hear from you. Do you mind sharing a little bit about how you got started and what things look like for you before you created your business and started helping moms?
Absolutely. I started way back when. So I actually have a music degree and an accounting degree. So I really like the mix of the logical and the creative.
Yeah.
That's just always been how I am. And I don't know if you ever remember like those career tests we took in school back in our day, but when
Yeah.
I did that, it literally told me I could do anything. Super helpful. So helpful. So I took that and I just, I always wanted to be a musician. That's what I wanted to do. So I went into that field because my parents told me I needed a backup plan. Can't be a musician, you have to have a backup plan. So I was like, okay, I'll be a music teacher. So I actually, when I graduated and then I moved over here with my husband, I was like, well, I will work from home because we went through 5 babysitters in a month and a half.
Oh,
And
wow.
we'd already uprooted my 2-year-old from everything he knew to move over here. And
Yeah.
my husband adopted him after we got married. So great situation. However, that's still a lot of newness for a very young kiddo. And so then having to go through that many people in such a short amount of time and never really have any kind of stability was really, really tough for him. And so I was like, I'll just figure something out. So that's when I started doing piano and voice lessons from home because I already knew I could do that and I enjoyed it. But my husband worked shift work. So having all that noise around when he's trying to sleep during the day was impossible and it wasn't a great situation. So I was like, all right. So I got on Pinterest and started searching because, second best search engine to Google.
I
And
love
I
this so
found,
much.
right? It's amazing. It's so great. I still do a lot of arts and crafts from Pinterest,
Yeah.
but I found virtual assisting and I was like, well, this is interesting. I could probably do this. And anything else that I had found, like call centers, things like that, always required something I didn't have, whether it was a landline or I'm a Macintosh user and always have been. So I didn't have Windows, and a lot of people required the Windows programming or something. So I was like, well, that eliminates me from so many things. But when I found virtual assisting, they're like, you can do it from whatever you've got.
Yeah.
And I was like, sounds great. So I actually found an agency to work with. And that was, I mean, I'm very grateful for it because I learned a lot from that. And I actually was able to do a lot of networking and things that allowed me to continue afterwards. But I didn't like the way that they treated their clients, and I didn't like the way that they treated their employees. And so I decided to go out on my own, and sink or swim time. It was an interesting journey from there. And that's kind of what led me on this path. What led me to mom entrepreneurs is every single person I've ever talked to always asks me advice about what I do, how I do it, how I don't go crazy, because my husband now has been away for 3 years.
Oh,
Um, yeah, he works in a different state at the moment and lives out of our camper. It's only about 4 hours away, but
yeah.
it's still a big enough difference. We don't see him. We probably see him one weekend out of a month if we're lucky. And so they're like, well, how do you do that when he's not there? You're in charge. I've got 3 kids. We've got 3 pets. I got to take care of the house, all the activities, all the things, and my businesses. And so I was like, well, if that's what people want to know, I guess that's what I'm going to go into.
Yeah.
And so that's why I started that. And then the society that I have was started because of I love Call the Midwife. It's one of my favorite shows. It's
Mhm.
beautiful. And I love that camaraderie and the fact that even if it's somebody they don't like, even if it's somebody that they have a big difference with,
Yeah.
as a community, they want that person to thrive and do better no matter what. So they'll get behind them and they will help them out despite any differences in opinions or differences just in living styles or anything. And they're like, I'm here to help you. What do you need?
Yeah.
And I think that was so impactful to me that I was like, we need to bring that back in the online realm. So that's where the society started, so that I could have that online.
I totally love that. And I'm a big community person too. And it's funny because in my like in real life in person, when I'm around my people, I'm an extrovert, but when I'm around people I don't know, I'm quiet, or people would assume introverted, right?
Yeah.
But a part of me thrives in community and connecting the dots and being that person who can see things before other people can see it and be like, hey, let's do this. Or, oh, you would be fantastic at that. Or let me connect you with this person or this resource and this tool, right? That overview of that, because community is so important and people can really activate something special within themselves when they are in a supportive community, whether it's in person or, like you mentioned, your society being online, right?
Mhm.
And there are, I know from personal experience and from my own clients as well, that is something that is often missed and kind of seen as something, oh, I'll just do that later after I build this, after I make this much money, or after I reach this goal. And it's like put on the back burner until it's to the point where it's no longer even in the kitchen because so many other things have come up. But it's really with community that more change happens in a way where you're not carrying the weight of it all. So you can burn out and all of these other things, right? Like that mental load that we carry, it's lessened, right? So
Yeah,
I
and
think,
through the difficult times too, when you wanna burn everything down or you feel like
yes,
it's a failure, you
every
have that.
entrepreneur gets to that
Yeah,
point.
exactly. You have that community that's there to be like, no, you've got something great, and to remind you of the positive and why you're doing what you're doing, because sometimes we need that little push. It's just important. And what I do is goal setting and assessing. And so monthly we get together and we chat about what your goals are for that month, what went well the previous month, if we need to reshift them, because as a mom entrepreneur, you do have so many things going on at once and you can't always predict what's going to happen. So sometimes we set our sights a little too high,
Yeah.
but also sometimes we set them too low. So it's nice to have somebody there to question that and say, do you think you're putting too much on your plate with all that's happening? Or Do you think maybe we should set that a little higher? I don't know. That might be, I feel like you could accomplish that by tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing, like to keep you in a check, to keep that perspective. Because I think a lot of times, I know I do it when I'm sitting there and I'm going, I didn't do anything today. So what I started doing instead is I started listing out when my husband asks me how my day is, I tell him everything I did that day. It doesn't matter what it is. I will tell him if I got meat out of the freezer to make dinner. Like I will tell him everything I did that day because not only is it great for him to hear what I actually did and not downplay it, but it's good for me as a reminder to myself that I really did do a lot that day, even if it has nothing to do with my business, or even if, my house is still a disaster that I'm looking at, I can put it into perspective and see what I actually did that day.
I love that. And you know what? I had a therapist recommend that to me years ago because especially when I was transitioning from Alaska to Texas and, the move and everything, and I felt really overwhelmed with a lot of stuff. And I was still surrounded by boxes and surrounded by all of these things. And I'm like, I feel like I'm not doing anything. And the therapist I had at that time was just like, no, but you did. Right. And that's when was introduced because I was in college at that time too. So my daughter was 3, just turning 3. And I was in college transitioning from the army into all of these things. And I was like, oh, I'm not doing anything. And that's when I learned about the spoon theory and all of that. And so a lot of times as I can't speak for the male perspective, but I know for me being a woman, being a mom, we downplay a lot because we do it automatically,
Yeah.
right? We're automatically getting laundry done and kids fed and things like that. So downplaying it is almost so common, unfortunately. I hate to say this, it becomes ingrained to us as individuals, like, oh, we're expected to do that. We're not expecting help. We're not expecting anything like that. And then the world we live in, where it's like, okay, for partners or counterparts or men to put it on the wife or the partner, right? Like, oh, she'll take care of that. She'll cook, she'll clean, and she'll remember all of the birthdays and all of the thank you cards and all of the, going to soccer practice and doing this and doing that. And I'll just show up and it'll be okay because I pay bills or I do this and I do that. And then so it puts that other burden or weight on one side of the relationship. So I just want to circle back to you sharing your accomplishments with your husband. I think that that's really beautiful because not only is it allowing you to have a place to feel whole and to share and be seen, right? It's your community, but it's also creating more safety in what it is that you guys are co-creating too. And so you have more space to have the space for other people in your business. And I know that may have sounded like a long way to get to the point, but the way you were sharing it, it made my heart so happy to hear because a lot of people feel like their partners are other children and they don't know how to either communicate or be in a partnership together, right?
Or they feel like they're just adding to the burden of
Yeah.
what they're, or like that they are making it seem like the other partner isn't doing anything. What I have found is when I just list it out, when I don't like put emotions behind it,
Yeah.
um, it allows him to also be like, whoa, that's a lot. Here's what I did today. Like it makes him tell me about his day more often rather than just, because you also get into the mode where you're just like, oh, it's been good. It was fine. It opens up more of that communication. So he feels safer to tell me what he did too, knowing that I'm not saying it to like judge him and how much like let's compare apples to apples here, but um it's more of a holy cow, this is what I accomplished. How was your day? Um so yeah, I agree. It's just I've actually found that again, as long as I come at it from more of a logical perspective as opposed to an emotional side of it,
Yeah.
um, it has opened up a lot of the communication to be better than it was because both of us were not very great communicators in different ways
Yeah.
when we first met. And I think I want to say this is year 9, but I'm really bad at that. He's much better at remembering those dates. I literally have a plaque above my wall, and that's how I remember what year we're on. So Yeah.
I
Mhm.
love that. I love that because it shows how diverse each relationship and each partner is, right? Um,
Yes.
and I think that that's really beautiful for a plethora of reasons, but I'm having all of these thoughts that I'm listening to you. And something that I found, I don't know if you've also found this as you're helping moms, but there are some women who are seeking a way to find support so that they can find themselves, or, you know, like I try to remind myself I'm Kendra before I'm mom. I'm Kendra before I'm the business owner or a veteran or this and that, right? And a lot of people find me, I don't know if this is when they find you, but they find me when they're at that stage of either they're trying to get out of a relationship, but they feel trapped, or they're re-identifying themselves, right? Like they're trying to remove some of the labels and say, who am I? Let me get to know myself again so that I can be in my purpose. Because
Yeah.
sometimes we can get so deep in the labels and titles that we forget to show up as ourselves.
Yeah. I think a lot of the time when clients in general, because I'm also a virtual assistant, find me, it's when it's not just the identity piece, it's the boundaries that they need to
Yeah.
place and the fulfillment that they're trying to find again because they're so bogged down in all of the pieces that
Mhm.
it's hard to swim back up and find it and surface. And so I say that I create space, I manage time, and I help you shift your priorities. Because I feel like those are all the pieces that are involved in that, your identity, your fulfillment, and just the reassurance and letting go of the guilt of everything, because I feel like that's a huge piece. I mean, we all struggle with it probably daily,
Yeah.
that and then the fear of missing out, the FOMO of everything. You're always going to miss out on something. That's
Mhm.
just how it is. Whatever choice you make, you're going to miss out on something else. But that's okay. And it's okay if that shifts too. I started my business so I could be at home with my son because that's what he needed at the time. I am now at a point where it's expanded, and so my youngest goes to grandma's every day. She doesn't stay home with me. It's not for her to spend more time with me necessarily, but it is the time that we do have is coveted, and I'm engaged and I can hang out with her and she still feels safe in whatever that is, right? But because that's a lot of people will say, "Well, I thought you started your business so you could be at home with your babies." I did. I did start my business for that reason, but as it grew, it
Mhm.
changed and that need wasn't any longer the same.
Yeah.
So I was able to provide it differently, and that's okay too.
Yes, and I love that you've shared that because so many people get stuck in the shoulds, or they get stuck in the idea of what they have envisioned, right?
Yeah.
And I always say this because it's so true. We are living, breathing beings. Like we are going to continue to evolve. We're going to continue to shift and change. And that goes with whatever it is that we are creating. It's going to evolve with us, right? And it's just like your circle of friends will evolve and change, and all of that, because as you set your sights higher, you start realizing these people are for me, these people support me, these people teach me something, or these people, I feel really heavy after I'm hanging out with them. And so your life changes. And so your business and your creations evolve too. And, I love that you've shared how your business not only expanded, but it allows you to be present with your kids when you have that time. I have some people who don't understand why I have business hours because I work at home. And I'm like, but it's my business. It's not a hobby. It's my business. And I'm a single mom. And, I created this for this reason, but now this is where we are. And my daughter needs me in this capacity. And so she comes first because my family is number one on what it is that I value. Right.
Yes.
And giving yourself permission to set that boundary, like you mentioned, it's scary at first. I was scared to do it at first. I was like, oh, people are going to be mad, or people aren't going to buy from me anymore, or people aren't going to place, like book sessions and stuff because I'm only working during business hours, and I'm changing my weekend rotation. And but my daughter, she was able to appreciate our time together, which allowed me to make more use of our time when we are together. And then when I'm working, I hold better space for people. So it's like you said, like getting people to that point where they understand working in your zone, like allowing your help to come in, like your support, right? Your team, your community to come in and say, let me help you, let me uplift you in this way, allows you to be in your zone of passion and your zone of genius. And sometimes, and I use this as my way of thinking about it, because I'd like to speak from my perspective and not share others. I try. Is like when there are people who are amazing at making graphics, for example, marketing flyers, things like that, right? For me, I don't like doing that. I do not get joy from doing that. Yeah, if I'm being silly or being creative, yeah, like for something like that. But if it's something that someone's going to look at and critique and have like feedback on, I don't want to do it because that is not my zone of genius. I would much rather be here talking with you. I would much rather be here connecting with my clients and their appointments. I know you just had a session for this too, but like those are the moments that they refill my cup, so to say, right?
Yep. Yeah. What's funny about that too is I always say it's more like a sponge, because sponges, you can wring them out until they are brittle and crumbling. And that's kind of what we are. But eventually we have to refill it before we are nothing, right? We've got to soak up some of that water. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So tell me about how you hold space for people or these moms to get them to, or actually, what transformation do you feel is the biggest one that you provide for the moms that you are here to be of service to, right? Because I know the transformation may be really big, but if you could just speak to someone who's listening on the podcast today, what would a pain point be or something that they could be feeling that you can help them with?
I think it's really realizing that they can still get results in their way. There is no cut and dry. There is no, you have to follow this rule and this rule and this rule, which so many of us wish that we could do. But really, it's finding what works for you and rolling with that. Because it is going to, especially as a mom, it's going to be different for each person. What works for me as a mom and business owner is not going to be the same for you. I mean, your business is different than mine, and who you serve is different than me. And so also your child is different than me, and how you choose to parent is going to be different than me. Even if we're similar, there's going to be differences. And really just diving into that and knowing that there's someone there that's going to guide you through that and really support you through that, and helping you discover what that is, and taking it over if you want a VA for that part of it. Then that's kind of where I step in. I'm there for the guidance, or I'm there as an extra hand. So that's kind of what my zone of genius is.
I love that. And what can you share for the person who is on the fence, who's like, I know I need help. I've been thinking about it. I've been considering it. I just don't know. I don't know. And they're just not quite ready to let go of the reins, even though I'm talking to you listeners. It may be good for them. It may be good for them to do so. What would you recommend, or what would you say so that they could feel supported in taking that step with you, or with someone that perhaps they've been looking at or shopping around with?
Start the conversation, ask questions. If they're willing to ask, if they're willing to answer your questions or guide you to a place where you can find those answers and give you that support before you purchase, that's probably a great place to start, because then you'll be able to feel it out a little better and see how your relationship is, and if it's as good of a fit as you dream about in your head. But also, like, decide. Once you decide, that's really the biggest step, because for me, when I invested in my first coach, it was a big investment. It is a big investment. When I hired my first team member, it's a big investment because you're committing to that. And so don't always look at the price tag. Definitely look and see how much you need to save, because that's a big thing. But what I always did was I didn't barter. I wasn't like, oh, can you maybe do that for much less? That's not in my budget. I never said it wasn't in my budget. I would just say, okay, thanks for that information. And then I knew how much I needed to save for whoever it was I wanted to work with. I didn't go shop around, and because I mean, you certainly can if that's your thing, if you want to filter through all of those people because there's a big pool. But if there's somebody that you know you want to work with, figure out what their pricing is, work on saving that amount, and then start. Most people have a smaller package you can start with, whether it's a month, a 3-month trial. Like there's usually a smaller package you can trial their services with. And then that'll give you an idea, A, if it's going to work, B, if you're getting the results you want, and C, if you can still afford it after that trial. And you can go from there. It's usually, that's usually what I say, just jump in. Because if you don't, you're you're basically just shutting yourself down. You're saying no to yourself before you give yourself that opportunity. So
And I think that you hit on some very valid points about getting really clear on what the investment is, what the return is going to be too. That's something that I often share with people is, okay, but when you do invest this, you're also going to have free space to bring in revenue in your business, right? Or you're going to have the mental freedom to do these other things that you said you wanted to do. You said you wanted time to work out. You said you wanted time to go have a hobby and things like that, right? So you're feeding back into yourself while you're also investing too. So I think that that's beautiful how you've laid that out. And I hope that only the best comes, because so many moms need it, but they just have these big emotions where they get distracted with all of the noise, and then they just shut down because they're looking at everything, trying to absorb everything.
yeah.
And like I think each of us that have been an entrepreneur for some time have invested in various coaches and things of that nature to help us to understand the importance of asking questions before, seeing if they have perhaps payment options or smaller packages and things of that nature, because sometimes the marketing doesn't always match you, or the marketing doesn't always match I call it your essence, like how you want to show up and things like that. And that's important to acknowledge and to talk about without shame or without fear or without having to run away, right? We're all adults. And so that you can move forward in the future with confidence and not have like a bad taste in your mouth about it. Uh,
Yes.
so I think that that's really beautiful. And with that being said, I know that you have a freebie you want to offer everyone, right? Before I forget.
I do. So I actually gave you my time management one, but I'm wondering if after our conversation, what it might be a better fit is I also have a managing a business and kids
Ooh,
freebie, 5 ways to manage your business with kids. And so I think I'm gonna pop that over to you instead,
okay.
because I think that'll be a better fit after everything we talked about today. Yeah, I have a lot of freebies, but that one is my prime one since it does mix both the
Yeah.
mom and business life. Um, yes, it's very, very helpful. How to manage your business with kids.
How to manage your business with kids. I can tell you a handful of people in my Facebook group, Soulpreneur Life, who would love to get their hands on that too. So I think we should share that in our group as well when we air this. So I think that it's beautiful that you know you were able to evolve in the way that you've evolved and nurture the relationships in your business and your family in the way that you have.
Thank you.
I I know it's not easy, and I know right now I'm seeing a lot of content online with the new year, with this being the new year, and some people are sharing the overwhelm of juggling partners and kids and business and things like that, and New Year's resolutions, which if you are listening to this and you're one of those New Year's resolution people, understand it's okay. We're in the dead of winter. It's okay to rest. Springtime is coming. That is
Yeah.
when a lot of us rebirth and come out of our cocoons and show up for life. So just wanted to share that a little bit with you guys. And it's been an honor to share space with you, to see you over the years and the amazing content that you continue to push out and put out for those of us to connect with. I look forward to continuing to network with you in the future, and
Yay.
possibly I have an idea. I'm going to talk to you about it, but I have an idea for something in the future that I think you would be an amazing part partner to be with. Okay. But anyways,
I'm excited. I can't
I
wait
think
either.
I think it's going to be really good. I do. Okay, so back on track. So make sure that you guys, if you haven't already subscribed to the Soulpreneur Life podcast, you go ahead and you hit subscribe, and then you look down below our podcast so that you can get the link and connect with Jessica on all of her socials at
Mom Elevated on
Mom
everything.
Elevated. Okay. And we'll also have her link for her freebie so that you can get those tips and tricks on managing your mom life and your business, and your time management and all of that good stuff. And it's been an honor. Again, I'm so grateful that we were able to do this today. And I look forward to seeing y'all on the next podcast. All right. Take care, everyone.